Thank you, Jim. Think how much has changed over 25 years. 25 years ago, we were lucky if we could make a call to India on a scratchy landline. Now, ICFJ is teaching journalists how to use new technology to deliver news, giving even illiterate people access to information on such things as natural disasters and local governance. 25 years ago, there were relatively few women on air in the US, and even fewer in many countries around the world. This year, ICFJ created the first broadcast news agency for women in Bangladesh, adding diversity to newsrooms all across that country. "25 years ago in Latin America, dictators reigned and the media did their bidding. Now there are vibrant news organizations, and many of them aided by ICFJ, which are vigorously questioning their governments. In Guatemala, we've been training radio journalists to give voice to Mayan communities, once the target of death threats. With ICFJ's assistance, William López has become a powerhouse trainer in his own right. Let's listen to him.
The role of communications media is to maintain the kind of journalism standards promoted by ICFJ. Because of the 2 Knight Fellows in Guatemala, I have become a journalism trainer myself. Since then, I have worked with more than 70 indigenous journalists in digital radio production, and I've encouraged them to write about the health and environmental and human rights issues that matter to us, and that the government would rather cover up. We've even created a new national network of radio journalists. Our community now has a powerful voice that officials can no longer ignore. I really couldn't have done it without ICFJ.
"25 years ago, African journalists were stifled by ruthless tyrants propped up by Cold War rivalries. Today, with our assistance, African journalists are becoming experts in covering health and poverty issues. Working with our Knight Fellow, Ugandan journalists wrote stories that pressured the government to release millions of dollars worth of the polio vaccine, and that helped raise the country's vaccination rate to an unprecedented 90%. 25 years ago, there were virtually no independent news organizations in the Middle East. Today, we're forming new investigative journalism units throughout the region. And we're training Saudi women to play a stronger role in the newsroom. A few years ago, we trained a promising young journalist in Iraq working for the Washington Post. When it became too dangerous for him to work there, we snatched him up. Let's listen to Bassam Septi, now editor of our Arabic website.
I first heard about ICFJ while I was working as a special correspondent for the Washington Post. I had heard about the great reputation of ICFJ through a group of Iraqi journalists who told me that the ICFJ was holding a workshop, a training workshop for Iraqi journalists in Amman, Jordan, about covering democratic elections. Keep in mind, this was the very first time Iraq was holding democratic elections, so I was very eager to attend this kind of workshop in Jordan. So we took the risk. I drove with a group of colleagues to Jordan, and we passed by a very dangerous area in Iraq where insurgents were very active there. So we hid our press badges in our shoes, and we pretended we were a family, and that's how we basically succeeded in crossing the borders. After I attended the training, my reports made their way to the front pages of the Washington Post, and thanks to ICFJ for that. And now I work for ICFJ, and I'm very happy here. I believe that ICFJ has a great mission, and I believe that journalists worldwide are in desperate need of such kind of quality journalism training.
Bassam, will you stand for a minute? Thank you. 25 years ago, major U.S. news organizations had bureaus around the world. Today, few can afford to provide international coverage at a time when Americans need to know about what's happening beyond their borders more than ever before. ICFJ sends American journalists overseas to report on global issues that matter to their local communities. We're also deepening American journalists' knowledge of the Muslim world and even pairing them with Muslim counterparts on joint reporting projects. ICFJ matched Jamila Trindle, a U.S. television reporter, with a top Indonesian journalist to examine the growing Islamic fervor there. She said that made all the difference in her coverage.
As opposed to being helicopter journalism where I sort of landed there and went off on my own to try and find this story, it was really something that was planned over many months and something that I researched with the help of my Indonesian partner, and we were really able to get into a complex issue in a much more in-depth way and to show some of the context of it. I just think it's great that ICFJ can step in and support these ideals of journalism and support international coverage in a time when journalism is really in transition and a lot of these stories really wouldn't get covered otherwise.
25 years ago, there were no real journalism programs behind the Iron Curtain. In the 1990s, we helped create the first hands-on journalism school in the Caucasus. Today, it's a truly vibrant organization with distinguished graduates from Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. Let's listen to Maya Mikashavidze, the Dean of the Caucasus School of Journalism and Media Management.
But to me, the biggest achievement of ICFJ is that they were thinking of our sustainability from the day one. ICFJ trained local teachers who are working in the school to this day. They trained me to run the school, and they set very firm foundation for our independent existence. I want to wish happy anniversary, and I want to stress how important we think your work is and how you will be able and you should be able to help and benefit medias all over the world.
As you can see, ICFJ has accomplished so much in 20